Welcome to the 18th season of the Nitwits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Our Nitwits panel includes Neil Riddell of the Altoona Mirror, Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com, Jacob Cowker of WTAJ Sports, and a special guest Nitwit each week. The Nitwits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Reed and Cellini, Doctors Reed and Cellini provide orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona, just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. By Your Rehab Choice, Health South Altoona, ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By The Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Sunday.
Welcome to the Nitwits for the first time here in 2016. Time to put a bow on Penn State's 7-6 season in year 2 under James Franklin. They are Neil Riddell from the Altoona Mirror, Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com, former Penn State wide receiver Joe Nastasi. I'm your host, Jacob Cowker. Let's start with the news that overshadowed any final score from the TaxSlayer Bowl. Christian Hackenberg announcing inside Everbank Field that he will not be coming back to Penn State, leaving early for the NFL. Not exactly where or when maybe we expected this, but some news that wasn't exactly a shock either.
Not exactly what we or even Penn State, I don't think they were quite prepared for that announcement. And even, it was no surprise. I mean, he obviously, I think, couldn't wait to get out. And he gave Penn State 3 years. It was a little surprising kind of the way he handled it, thanking everybody from Tony Mancuso on down, except for James Franklin. I thought that was a little bit of a mistake on Hackenberg's part, but he's gone and they move on now.
Well, I mean, you got the sense he was kind of doing it off the cuff, though, because I specifically asked him, you know, what are your plans for the next couple of weeks? And he basically danced around it, and then 10 minutes later, 5 minutes later, another reporter asked the same thing, and that's when he kind of came clean and said, yeah, I'm going to declare, which, you know, a lot of people are wondering, did he inadvertently not mention Franklin? I don't think that's the case. I think this kid knew he was going to make the announcement at some point, wasn't sure exactly when, but once he did, he kind of methodically thanked all these different people. And, you know, I don't know that I want to call it a direct snub, but I don't think, my take on this is that he didn't mention Franklin for a reason. Seriously, that's just my take on it. And again, I don't know that if it's a mean thing, I don't know what it is, but I think that there was obviously maybe some tension there or something. I think that's where it came from.
Yeah, with all the discussion, I mean, I think we all knew where it was going. Class family comes from, class individual. Whatever was going on there was obviously between the two. And, you know, again, maybe it was an oversight, maybe it wasn't, but again, great person. I think he's going to do extremely well. So, again, that didn't surprise me on when he announced as much, because I thought it showed a lot of guts, not only to go through last year and then this year, but not even to flinch when it came to the bowl time, because he knew what was at stake for him. I mean, he probably knew for a while what he was going to do, and obviously injury comes into play there. So, you know, he toughed it out, and I think it worked out well for all parties involved.
I think it was Deshaun Hamilton after the game when asked, you know, when did you guys find out? He said that he knew before they even headed to Jacksonville. And that's one of those things where, you know, I don't think anyone expected Christian to come out before the game and say what was going on, even though, you know, he was trying to say, oh, well, maybe I haven't made up my mind, even though clearly if you're telling, you know, if Deshaun Hamilton knows the decision was made. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things, you talk about the right time to do it. Maybe not in a dark hallway, but waiting until at least the game was decided.
Well, for the media, it was great because then we didn't have to wait those extra 2 or 3 days. But, you know, the one thing I will say in Christian Hackenberg's defense is that, listen, I don't know what he was going to gain by coming back. He had already been sacked 103 times in his career, if my numbers are right, prior to that game. Ironically, he gets dinged up seriously for the first time in that game. Mm-hmm. he was kind of living. He was lucky. I mean, let's face it. And given what his talents are worth at the next level, regardless of what you think he did at Penn State, somebody's going to draft him pretty high. Somebody's going to get a good quarterback. He's going to be good at that next level. And I just don't think it would have made any sense for him to come back.
I mean,
I don't know
he
where
was
he's going
still
to
in
get
the
better.
game about 6 plays afterward. And if you
A
watch,
warrior.
I mean, he made some tough throws. When he was really hurting. I mean, he did a great job on and off the field for them for 3 years.
Yeah, sounds like a Steelers quarterback to me, if I'm guessing. He fits that mold, and I definitely see him. And this may be for another segment here, but I see him fitting in a first-round pick. I mean, I do, and I see one of these playoff teams getting him. I mean, if he's going to play behind someone for 1 to 2 years and get really good, and turn around and have a pro career that would be, who knows where. But my point is, he's not going to have to go in right away and play if he gets one of those.
That'll benefit
I
him
think he's going to be. And then it's not a great. When I say not a great draft class for the quarterbacks, I mean, if you look at the guys there, it's all going to come down to, with all 5 of them that they've discussed, it's all going to come down to their pro days.
And
That's
combines and Senior
absolutely.
Bowl, yeah.
It's not going to have anything really to do with their body of work. I'm talking about those 5 to this point. It's going to be from this point forward. So he's right. I mean, he could be the 1st to the 5th. It just depends on where they all stack up.
Well, now that we've opened this up, let's get into the NFL future, not only of Hackenberg, but Austin Johnson declaring early. Obviously, you have guys like Zettel, Nassib could be in the mix as far as draft. I'm with you. I think that Hackenberg, somebody's going to fall in love with him, and it's going to be, he would benefit.
Hopefully, it won't be the Browns.
He would benefit greatly from being a late first-round pick and getting that time. You always hear Bill O'Brien, Houston. Brian Hoyer. He's not their quarterback.
Houston needs someone now, though. Houston needs someone now. I think it'd be better serve Hack to go and sit behind somebody for a couple years. I mean, the way Aaron Rodgers did, the way Favre did early in his career. And the other thing about Christian is this is a guy, Neil, you touched on it. He's not only going to go in and tear it up in the combine athletically, he is going to impress the hell out of people with the way he carries. He already carries himself, and I mean this in a very positive way, like a professional. There's going to be no concerns about him off the field. So I think, I don't know if he's going to creep up into that first round, but I'd be surprised if he goes by the second. Austin Johnson, I think he's going to be a pretty high pick, and I think he's going to be the other guy who's a really good pro out of this
Real
class.
athletic, yes. Correct.
Nassib, we have not seen the real Nassib now for a month. He clearly was hurt in this game, favoring it, another warrior because, he didn't show up in the stat sheet at all. I'd be curious what he's going to do at the next level. I think he has a chance, but he looks like he needs shoulder surgery.
And the wild card is Zettel. I mean, here's a guy who I think he has to figure out where he's going to play at that next level. I thought it was interesting after the game. He said he feels he has to drop his body fat percentage. I mean, he's already a pretty thin guy for a defensive lineman, so that tells me he's looking at playing D-end, kind of / outside linebacker in a 3-4. I wonder how well that translates, and I think that's going to knock him down a little bit. But I'll tell you what, I would not mind my Philadelphia Eagles getting a guy like that in the middle of the draft because he's going to bring it.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those tweeners that I think if he can get his body in that shape, could be, if he's a middle or a late round guy, could end up being a steal of this draft. Still to come on the Nitwits, we get a glimpse of the future, perhaps, down in Jacksonville, the debut of Trace McSorley, and the rest of our TaxSlayer Bowl takes when we return.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Reed and Solani, orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona. Just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need.
Now back to the Nitwits. A roundtable discussion of Penn State football.
How much in football or even life ever goes to plan? We expected to see Trace McSorley playing in the TaxSlayer Bowl, and when he came in, did you expect him to kind of lead that rally a little bit there in the second half, especially the fourth quarter?
Well, he showed a lot of guts. I thought that was a courageous performance on them. Really one of the best under James Franklin. When you consider everything that they had going against them, their leader is injured, and they get off to a slow start. They're down 24-3. That could have been 38-3 very easily. I give McSorley a lot of credit.
Well, when you start looking ahead to next year, how important was that? Obviously, nobody wanted to see Hack get hurt. But for this kid to have this opportunity, when he first got in there, he looked a little bit rattled, and completely understandably so, because he hadn't played a lot of football. But for him to do what he did, I think just bodes so well. Now, I will also say this, that I don't think it's a slam dunk that this kid's going to be the starter. Right? You keep an eye on this Tommy Stevens. Very similar in his skill set, but he's a bigger kid, a stronger kid. You're going to have a quarterback battle, but I think going into next year, you have to feel a little bit better about this offense, knowing that you have a kid that has that kind of heart. And I'll tell you what, Franklin has said at every turn that this kid's a winner, and if you look at what he did in high school, he was sure a winner in high school.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if you look at him, that's everything I understand about him, and those kids they're tough to come by, especially at that position, someone that just knows how to win, and there's an X factor there, and it seems like this is the kind of kid that has, you say, well, he's not as big as maybe some of the other quarterbacks, maybe not as fast, not a runner, not a thrower, but a winner. And, you take those guys. I mean, especially in college football. You get hot, you play with a lot of confidence, the team follows, you're the leader. Again, he seems like that kind of kid. So, I'm excited about seeing what's going to happen here in the future. And it also, he seems like he fits really well with what they're trying to do. Yeah. We didn't see, obviously, what Moorhead's going to go and do here, the new OC, but sounds like he's going to fit that as well.
How about how this kid played on fourth down? When drives were dying, I mean, he threw some really – we've been waiting for them to throw the ball in the end zone a lot of the year.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the backup gets dusted off, and he throws 2 touchdowns.
Well, the Geno Lewis play, we're all in the press box saying, these people are nuts. What are they doing? He makes a great throw, great catch on top of it by Geno. And it was, I'll tell you what, that game really could have gone a completely different way after they fell behind 24-3. And I think you credit the coaching staff, you credit McSorley, you credit everybody for not letting that get away from them and at least give themselves a little bit of a positive note going into the offseason.
Well, as for the rest of the game, though, another slow start, kind of eventually dooming Penn State. If that game is maybe 4 minutes longer, the momentum they're building, but it's not. And it was a lot because of the way they started. They go the entire season now without scoring a touchdown on the opening drive. It's kind of the same story.
Where's the script?
They need, yeah, well, that's exactly it, and that's where you hope with Moorhead coming in, if you're a Penn State fan, that they're able to change things. Listen, Ricky Ronnie, I don't know if we expected him to perform miracles in, however many weeks it was that he was the acting OC, but I think really in terms of James Franklin, we're getting to that point where it's kind of put up or shut up, and a lot is riding on this hire of Joe Moorhead going into next season. I think how well or poorly that offense plays next year is going to go a long way to determining James Franklin's ultimate fate here at Penn State.
How about the performance of the defense more so in the second half as they were starting to get some pressure in the backfield, disrupting what Georgia was trying to do?
Yeah, to me, that's all sparked by time of possession. I mean, you get momentum and time of possession, and people, from an average fan standpoint, to say, well, the defense didn't play that well early. Well, a lot of that has to do with the offense and momentum. The game is 3 phases. I mean, we all know that, and they were beating us on special teams, which we got beat a lot this year on special teams. And what happens, you can't hold the ball long enough, that momentum shifts. They get a special teams play, trick play, touchdown, now they're up 2 scores. That really hurts a defense. Momentum's a huge part of it, especially in college football, huge part of the game. Offensively is really going to help our defense next year. If we can move the ball and keep the ball, we're going to help our defense. And that game should have kind of been, I want to say about a 10-3 maybe at the half, because, the trick play and the special teams hurt us there. But we get it down there, defense will play better for sure.
Well, absolutely with the special teams has to be fixed. I mean, that was really a train wreck all year. But that would be second to the offensive line. They have to get this offensive line squared away because they have some pretty good parts. Look at how Godwin played, Barkley. They have some offensive talent. The receivers that they have and the ones coming in, it's just been an area that's made everyone else look worse.
It doesn't really, you talk about those skill position players, and it looks like maybe another wave of them coming in, guys who redshirted kind of wave after wave. But what can that mean without kind of that critical part like Neil's talking
Well,
about.
they have to commit to the youngsters on the offensive line. I mean, everything we're hearing are that Bates and Gonzalez are two of the better young offensive linemen. Sooner or later, you have to throw these guys in there. And listen, this wasn't a year because they were true freshmen, but I think you have to commit to the young offensive linemen. And even if they make mistakes, grow with them and at least know that there's potential down the line.
Yeah, that's critical. I'm sorry, but it is, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, I know that it's well documented with that offensive line, but, you know, when you get that and you see these teams that look at the Alabamas, look at the Clemsons, the guys that are in there, they run it well because they can hold the ball and they got offensive linemen that are going to move guys around.
Well, I guess we'll continue this discussion after the break. We'll dig even deeper into the program now that Penn State is through 2 full seasons under James Franklin, plus some more areas maybe that the Nittany Lions need to address in the spring. All that, plus more when we return on the Nitwits.
The Nitwits, a roundtable discussion of Penn State football.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Monarch Cleaners for all your cleaning needs. By your rehab choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life.
Hey, I'm Carl Nassib, former defensive end for Penn State University. You're watching The Nitwits.
It's an all-American caliber reopen here on the Nitwits. Big thanks to Carl. And you know what? I'll put this out here. If you can tell me the exact number of times we heard the word progress from a Penn State player or coach in Florida, I'll give you a prize. It was a lot. One way or another, it was a lot. Are we buying it after a second straight 7-6 season? The amount of times you heard the word progress, the amount of talk about progress heading in the right direction?
You know what? I can start that, and I'll definitely say yes. And there's so many aspects of the game and what's going on and what has happened at Penn State. So you got to look at the overall picture as opposed to maybe just the offensive line or just the quarterback or just the wide receivers or just the defense. You know, you look at where the university was in 2011, and then get it to here, and you tell me. I mean, to me, it's pretty easy to see that we are absolutely going in the right direction, making the necessary changes. It may not always be what everyone wants to hear. It may, you know, and look, you got to give both coaches, meaning O'Brien and Franklin, a ton of credit. First of all, to hold it together, and number 2, to get it going in the direction it is, because it could have fallen apart 10 times over. We all know that, but sometimes we forget because we want to see the blue-white winning and winning big and titles, and you know. So yeah, it's tough to be patient, but we got to remember where we were in 11 to now. So
Big
picture,
I absolutely agree, and I do think we always, especially after the season, take a step back. But if we're going to look at specific elements of the team, I would say offensive line, we've not seen progress. Special teams, we have if anything, we've seen regression. Tight end, we've seen regression. And that's why, and I'll go back to what I mentioned earlier, in terms of Moorhead, I think there's a lot riding on this for James Franklin because, you know, this offense has had areas that are pretty good, but they really need that offensive line to come around. They need to get more production out of the tight ends. They just need to be more consistent on offense. And I think so long as you're a coach like Franklin who doesn't specifically call the plays on offense or defense, and that's fine. There are a lot of really good coaches out there. You need your coordinators to really step up and do a good job. And obviously so far that hasn't happened on offense and special teams.
Well, I think I agree with everybody.
Oh, no.
But no, there's something to be said. You know, they had to get into a transition eventually. I remember we talked about when Nebraska finally made their transition in the early 2000s. You know, they were losing some, but at least they were onto it, and that's where Penn State is right now. You're going to have some steps sideways. Clearly, the offensive game management, from Franklin has to improve. Timeouts, alignments, all the little things that
Penalties.
we saw. That just aren't what you would expect from a guy who really was one of the top candidates, to get this job. So I think that's an area, and going to the offensive coordinator as quick as he did, no doubt. I mean, because now everything will shift to him.
A little short on time here. I just want to maybe just throw something out. As we head into the spring, about 3 months away, are we all agreed that the offensive line is the one position that is the biggest looking into the spring, or does anyone have any sort of other area just really quickly that you're looking at as well?
I would say offensive line just because of how critical it is. I think the other positions we have buttoned up pretty good. When I say even young kids with the skill sets that we have and what we've recruited. So I would say absolutely offensive line would be the #1 focus.
Well, I'm anxious to see who steps up on the defensive line. I think there's some really good young talent there, but they lose some really good players.
Right.
Franklin also left the door open to potentially another staff change or two, depending on what happens at the convention, and other guys' names have come up.
All right, well, we shall see as the future unfolds. Coming up here on the Nitwits, speaking of future, a big announcement is on its way. What is it? You'll have to stick around to find out. I know Neil, he's probably pretty excited
Big
about
announcement.
it. We'll see you again in a couple minutes.
The Nitwits are brought to you by EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday.
Well, with another Penn State season in the books, another year of Nitwit of the Year is also wrapped up. And let's just congratulate Mr. Neil Rudell. He absolutely owned this event this year, winning on the final week as well. And with that, we'll make you.
We wish he would act like he'd been there before.
You
though.
know.
The way he celebrates over these things.
Just, I mean, look at that.
Oh my God.
Look at that. It's like we ran out of room over here with
Wow.
as many Nitwit
I
of the
can't
Week
even
you
see
had.
you guys in the rearview mirror.
See, act like you've been there before. Rudell.
Yeah, I haven't spiked it. Hey, I just wanted to a couple thank yous here. I mean, this is our 18th year on the show. We've had so much fun. More and more people, recognize us through the Nitwits at the pep rallies, and the women at the hotel in Baltimore. I just want to thank all our guests. Joe, you've been a real regular contributor. Of course, Mike. We got Wally Richardson this year, Jerry Fisher, Spider Caldwell, Sandy Barber likes being a Nitwit, and of course we can't not mention Lou. But Jake, Casey tells me you're our best host, and we appreciate you. And Mark, seriously, the friendship and the extra mile you go to come down here, after Sunday's tough road trip. And I want to
enjoy
thank
it.
all the WTAJ staff, and the heart and soul of the Nitwits is Chris Owens behind the scenes.
Yeah,
Just
very
want
much.
to thank everybody for another great year.
All right. Thanks for another good year, Joe,
Thank
Mark,
you.
Neil. Thanks for coming in this final week. We will see you next year here on the Nitwits.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Reed and Salaney, Doctors Reed and Salaney provide orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona, just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. By your rehab choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Sunday. You can also see the Nitwits on AltoonaMirror.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next week.